This week, the Clarets shared the spoils in the race for Europe before heading to London to inflict some capital punishment on a struggling West Ham side. This is the No Nay Never podcast. Hello and welcome to the No Nay Never podcast. I'm Richard Steele, sitting in Penathley this week, and joining me to look back at the last two regular matches, our regular panellists, Robbie Kopak and Tom Whitaker. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hello.
Evening, Richard. I thought Natalie just had a really sore throat for a second.
No worries. So we've got a lot to dissect on this podcast. Going to dissect both games that we played recently. The Sheffield United draw, go into more detail on the fantastic victory against West Ham United yesterday, and then look forward to the Liverpool game on Saturday. So first of all, Robbie, I'll come to you first. Was a draw a fair result, did you think, against Sheffield United?
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously Sheffield United had a golden chance in the opening couple of minutes or so, and then it's sort of evened itself out. We got the goal on the stroke of half time, and then I felt after the McNeil chance, after he squandered it, I felt like we weren't going to see the game out. It felt like a really long second half, and you know that Sheffield United are going to put the ball into the box, and it's just one cross we didn't deal with, and unfortunately they got the equaliser, and I think on the balance of play they probably deserved it.
Yeah, it's always disappointing when we do go 1-0 up. You always think that we're going to see the game out, and it could have been another big 3 points for us. But I think on the balance of play, and I think at times Sheffield United played some really good football. So I do think a draw was a result overall. But Tom, I'll come to you. A couple of key misses, Vidya and particularly McNeil in the second half.
Yeah, frustrating them too, the McNeil one especially. I think both of them, to me, it looked like the gap, if you're shooting with your left foot there, it looked like the gap was at the near post to me. I wasn't that impressed with Henderson. I hear a lot of stuff about how it's him or Pope for the England shirt. I don't think I've ever seen Henderson have a good game myself. He's always dropping some clang down. I thought he left too much room at his near post. And they've both kind of dragged it across the far corner with the left foot, when to me it seemed more obvious to place it. And obviously the Vidra one, that was a shame, but the McNeil one, I think everyone had a feeling when that went past the post that we might just be living to regret that one, and so it proved.
Yeah, interesting point you said there about Henderson. It's kind of, there was a fair shot that came in, but he looked really uneasy dealing with the ball, and like you said, it dropped to McNeil, and you couldn't have wished for it to fall to anyone better, really. So it was disappointing. When you didn't see it go in the back of the net. And yeah, there was an air of inevitability that Sheffield United was going to go and score. Just the last point on the Sheffield United game before we move on. I'll stick with you, Tom. There was a lot of appeals for a penalty against Peters. I think Chris Wilder said after the game that he felt it should have been a penalty. What's your thoughts on that?
Probably like most people, I haven't got a clue what is and isn't a penalty for handball anymore. The way it sort of bounced up, I think it's one of them where I don't know if he maybe got a little nip with his foot first, and if he did, then I don't think you give that under the rules. But then, having said that, his arm's out, but not away from his body, and it's took quite a while to come to him. I don't think I could have complained that much if he'd have given it, but I could understand why it wasn't. I would say there's one in the second half as well, where no one's talked about, where I think it's Egan. He's got the centre forward just behind him, and he heads it back to the keeper, but he heads it onto his own arm and then to the keeper. Nobody seemed to mention that one, but I would have said if the Peters one was a penalty, that was as well. So perhaps they evened themselves out.
Yeah, at least I do vaguely remember that one, but like you said, nobody seemed to talk about it. Maybe because the Peters one wasn't given, there was no need to have a look at that particular decision. But yeah, fully agree with everything you've said there, Tom. I don't think it was a penalty. I think it would have been harsh if it was given a penalty, and probably that's the reason they didn't look at Egan's, was a result that Peters wasn't given. So fair result overall. What I really enjoyed about that game was it was two good, honest, hard-working teams, having a good battle out there with real no play acting or moaning, which is rare in the Premier League now. So come on now to our fantastic win in the capital last night against West Ham United. Again, a performance full of spirit, determination, and obviously a lot of quality on top of that. Robbie, I'll come to you. What did you make of the performance overall?
I thought we were very similar to the Palace game, to be honest, where we had to really show the ugly side of our game, and that seems to come on in leaps and bounds in the last. Like, we've always been good at it anyway, but we seem to even have like an even stronger steel about us. I thought that we started the game quite well. I thought we kept the ball really well. I thought there was a bit of zip to our play again, and then then we obviously we had to hang on a little bit. We got the goal, and then we had that little scare with Antonio hitting the post. But after that, we didn't really give West Ham a sniff. Sebastian Haller had that little chance where it dropped to him in the box, but a massive save by Nick Pope, who again was outstanding. And then after, but like I say, we're just balls into the box, and that's like we just love heading the ball away. We love defending, and it just goes to show how good we are. Like, when we really have to hang on to something, that you're always quite positive that we will see the game out.
Yeah, fully agree. They're quite similar to the Palace performance. We got put under pressure a little bit. Balls were into our box, but we dealt with it really comfortably. There was a little bit of time in the first half on that right hand side when Cresswell and on the left hand side when Cresswell and Antonio were linking up quite well. But overall, we did deal with the threat. Coming back to you, Tom, Robbie mentioned there that Haller missed a good chance, but it was a fantastic save from Nick Pope. Can you summarise his performance last night?
Yeah, I think he was back to his best. I mentioned on the last podcast, he's been a little bit shaky the last couple of games. Maybe fumbling a few crosses. There was a couple against Sheffield United where balls flashed across the box, and it was the first time I've ever seen a keeper dummy it. He was like coming for the cross and then just letting it go at the last second. I was a little bit shaky, but it was back to his best against West Ham, coming out and getting everything. I think they played into our hands. It's typical, West Ham thinking they're all that, but just booting balls in the box. He come and got everything, plucked it out the air, and then, like you say, stood up with some fantastic saves when we needed him. The one from Haller, obviously, it's a really good save with his boot. I don't see how the striker's giving him a chance there, but it's still a really good save. But the one in the first half as well from Souček, it was a cross came in. Souček probably, if he puts it in either corner, Pope's got no chance. But he stood up to it really well, Pope, and he just managed to get enough on it to take it out to the defender without putting too much on it to put it straight back in Souček's path. And that it's difficult skill that to control it, not only to keep it out of the net, but control where it's going after that. So that was quite an underrated save for me. And I think he's one ahead now outright in the race for the Golden Glove. So hopefully another clean sheet at Anfield on Saturday.
Yeah, wouldn't it be fantastic if he won that Golden Glove? I know he's played a few more games than Alisson this season, but it just really shows how well he's done this season and how well we've defended as a team. I'll come to you, Robbie. Sticking on Nick Pope, he seems to me by far the best goalkeeper in the Premier League at collecting crosses. He really takes the pressure off his defenders. How much of a help is that, especially for the centre halves?
I think it's a bigger help in when you're proper hanging on. So, like I said, the Crystal Palace game, the West Ham games, where you're having to grind out results. When you got a goalkeeper who can come and collect corners, and like the one in the 90th minute where he prevents it from going out for a corner. How he even gets his arms that high? Obviously, he's like six. He's like 6.5 foot or something ridiculous, and it's like it's been able to take that, just like you said, take the pressure off the defenders, and it just breezes, just oozes confidence around the team. And even as like a supporter, you just feel like Nick Pope can get down faster. He can reach those, like if it's going into like the postage stamp, you have a bit more confidence in him being able to like get those like where he's proper stretching for it. An unbelievable goalkeeper. I think he's probably one of our best goalkeepers we've ever had.
Better than Heaton?
I think when it comes to like claiming crosses and stuff, I think Tom Heaton were a little bit guilty of staying on his line at times. But I think this Nick Pope, he just has like really long arms. So I just think like that he's not like Jordan Pickford with his T-Rex arms, is he? But like, but yeah, he just, like I say, just oozes confidence. Like 90th minute, you just trust him to like come collect a cross, nice and easy, take the pressure off, go down to his knees and clutch the ball down to his chest and see the game out.
like you said, Heaton had, some of his shot stopping was amazing. We go back to that away game at Old Trafford where he made a gazillion saves, but Pope's ability when the balls are coming into the box just to take the pressure off the defenders, and even some of his punches last night were absolutely unbelievable. He's punching him 20 yards. Tom, I know I don't want to come across too biased, but it is a Burnley podcast. Should it be England number one, or at least be given a chance to really stake his claim in the run up to the Euros next summer?
I don't think you can make a case for Pickford, really. I think the only thing you could say about Pickford really was that he's good in the World Cup a couple of years ago. He's not been performing at the required standards since for me. So I think in the run up to the Euros, Southgate's got to be looking at Pope and Henderson, one of them to be staking a claim for the number one. I don't think you can just keep playing Pickford. Obviously, Pope's got the advantage that he's played a couple of games already. He probably is the established number two. I said earlier, obviously, I can't remember seeing Henderson have a good game. I remember seeing him drop a clanger against Leeds last season, against Liverpool this season. But, a lot of people who watch a lot more Sheffield United than me tell me that he's a very good goalie. So I'm sure it will be quite a close battle between them two, especially with what a good season Sheffield United have had. Yeah, I think I'd like to see probably in the build-up, maybe give them a couple of games each, see how they get on, see how they perform with the rest of the team. We spoke about Pope's kicking in the past, how that's likely to let him down. I don't know what Henderson's kicking like, so maybe that'll be an advantage for him. A bit more used to playing it out from the back, maybe. But yeah, for me, it can't be Pickford, and I'd say Pope is just that little bit ahead of Henderson at the minute with the experience he's already got with the England team. But yeah, for me, make it between them two. Give them both a couple of warm-up games each, and let's see who we go into the Euros with.
Listen, Gareth, Pickford for number one. Nick Pope, sorry, for England number one next summer. Be fantastic to see a Burnley player starting for England in a major tournament. So, coming on to the name of our podcast, going a little bit further up the pitch to Kevin Long. So he's waited a long time for his chance. He's been at Burnley for absolutely forever. And whenever he comes into the team, he very rarely lets us down. So, Robbie, clean sheet last night, clean sheet against Palace. Kevin Long, what can you say about him?
Yeah, he's just Mr. Reliable, isn't he? I think whenever you sort of lose one of Tarkowski or Ben Mee, I think anyone on the outside of, if you're not a Burnley fan, will probably think we struggle. But I think Kevin Long, every time he comes in, always puts in a shift, always puts in a performance. And I thought he was terrific again last night. I think there's maybe a few question marks over him if he gets left exposed. He's left one-on-one against someone, but that very rarely happens in a Burnley team anyway. And I thought his partnership with Tarkowski last night, it's like they've been playing together all season.
I think it's a testimony too to Dyche and the training he does with the players, and a testimony to the squad players, how they can come into the team after not playing so long, and then just put in performances like that. I thought he struggled a little bit against Antonio, as did Bardsley, but we really tightened it up. And second half, I thought he put in a really commanding performance, especially when Haller come up front and they started to go a little bit long ball, which started to suit us really. But yeah, for me, he's more than an adequate backup, and he's a really good squad player. But I do think we do need another centre half going into next season. Okay, Tom, that makes me come on to another player who seemingly wasn't really going to play much for us this season, and he's been a bit of an unlikely cult hero coming in on midfield, and I thought he did excellently yesterday. Eric Peters, Tom.
Yeah, fair play to Eric Peters. Obviously, we've spoken in the past about Ben Gibson. He's got the attitude problems, and that's why he's not playing Premier League football now. But Peters seems to be the exact opposite. Just willing to come into the team whenever he's asked to, do whatever job he's asked to. The guy's got 20 odd caps for the Netherlands, but he's not complaining about being stuck on our right wing. Up and down, working hard. He did that great job on Zaha with. Sorry, that was Brownhill, wasn't it? So he did a good job on Antonio, like you say, with Bardsley, and technically underrated as well. Like, he's not scared to have a shot. He's not scared to pick a pass. The goals we've seen him score this season in the cup, the one against Peterborough especially, he's got a decent hit on him. He's got some good technique, and he's put a few decent assists in as well. So I like the fact that he's got the confidence just to try these little things. A lot less timid than perhaps even like Hendrick has been on that right hand side.
What did you make of the little chip pass he did to Vidra in the first half?
Yeah, it was lovely that, wasn't it? That's the kind of thing I mean. Like it's not just being technically good enough to do that. It's having the confidence to do that when you're a left back playing on the right hand side. There was that shot that he had. It was just over the bar. Obviously, perhaps could have kept it down. But yeah, I like the fact that it's not just he doesn't just see it as a role where he's got to tuck in, track the winger, work hard, and give it to the more talented players. He's happy to put his hand up and be counted. So yeah, I've been really impressed with him. Perhaps that was his calling all along.
I know. I think that's you were saying there about his technical ability. I think when you see Eric Peters on the wing, you feel he's going to give a wholehearted performance, but he's almost going to play as a second fullback. What's really impressed me is his technical ability. He's willing to come inside, take the ball under pressure. And really lay some tidy passes off. And I just thought I'd mentioned that Vidra chip in yesterday. I was almost took back when he did it, and he seems to be growing into the role more and more. And talking about going into the role more and more and about adapting to the Premier League, someone I've been just massively impressed with is Josh Brownhill. I think he's got a little bit of everything to his game. He's been superb, hasn't he, Robbie, since he's come into the team since the restart?
Yeah, it's been an absolute bargain at, what was it, like £8 million, £9 million. Especially when you consider we got rid of Naki Wells, who barely kicked the ball for us, and we got, the Bristol City captain in a part of the deal. And yeah, just the way he gets around the pitch, he just seems to cover every blade of grass. And you can tell he's sort of been like a captain before. I think when I talk about that, being able to grind a result out, he's got like proper leadership qualities in the middle of the park. And I think him and Westwood really complement each other. Like they'll both like put the bodies on the line, both technically very good. And he looks like he got a bit of a shot on him as well. And he's actually not scared to actually run with the ball. I think that's maybe what Westwood won't do. Westwood will probably look for like an easy pass, as Josh Brownhill's probably a bit more likely to to roam into like the more forward positions, but you'll also cover that area which is maybe is lost. But yeah, I've been massively impressed with him and settling 3 games into the Premier League. After his first start in the Premier League against City, and that was really forgettable.
Yeah.
And it could have been easy for him to maybe drop, but I think the way he's responded and he squandered a couple of chances against Watford. Are you thinking, is he going to make the step up? Is he going to be value for money? And he's more than stepped up. He was terrific again last night.
Yeah, he's actually been a real joy to watch for me. He's brung real quality into that midfield, a real energy. Someone who actually wants to get the ball and drive forward with him. He's been an absolute breath of fresh air. And like you were saying, with that Naki Wells, trade deal, effectively, it's an absolute bargain. And some of the commentary was questionable last night on BT Sport, but post match, and Joe Cole was really complimentary about Brownhill. And I think he's got a really big future with us in the Premier League. So really positive signs. Final kind of thing I'll mention about West Ham or incidents in the game. I'll come to you, Tom. There's been a lot of outcry on Twitter, especially from the West Ham fans, and since the sending off of Eddie Nketiah, Tarky did a little bit of a naughty tackle against Jared Bowen. It was knee high. He got away with it with a yellow card. Do you think it was a red, Tom, or do you think that was the correct decision?
I find it quite difficult to judge it from the BT pictures. I think you saw it from just to the left of him and to the right of him, but you never saw the kind of the from behind him, so you could really see the impact. I think there's been a lot of talk about Nketiah's red card for Arsenal. Obviously for Arsenal, it's players don't get enough protection until it's one of theirs wrapping 6 studs around someone's knee, and then all of a sudden he's not that kind of player, and it was an accident. But it didn't look dissimilar to that challenge for me. So if you think Nketiah's was a red, probably Tarkovsky's was a red. The only thing I'd say is how much of a connection did he make? 'Cause it didn't seem to be as much as Nketiah got on that lad for Leicester. And someone mentioned to me the first game of the season, Che Adams did something similar to Ben Mee. It was studs up, but he didn't catch him too badly, and that was reviewed by VAR, and he didn't get the red. So if you compare it to that, then perhaps it was a yellow. But I think the way he's challenged, it is reckless. He's got the studs up. I don't think you could have complained if he had a red for that. I think probably got away with one there.
So I think that's the biggest thing with consistency. And I'll just stay with you, Tom. If Nketiah's was a red card, should have Tarkovsky's been, or are they different incidents?
Yeah, I think the only thing you can say is like I say, how much contact did Tarkovsky actually make? I think they're the same challenge, really. I don't think either of them are malicious necessarily. I think both of them have seen the balls there to be won and they've gone for it. But obviously they've gone for it in a reckless way with the studs up. Yeah, for me, I do think if Nketiah's is a red, then Tarkowski's is probably a red as well, unless, like I say, he's only brushed his foot and not really caught him. But I didn't see a big difference in the challenge. So, yeah, I think, again, it probably speaks to a lot of the inconsistencies and that we've highlighted with the VAR. I mean, the Arsenal game, obviously, they reviewed it in the studio and the ref went and had a look on the monitor for the West Ham game last night. I don't know if they even reviewed it on the VAR. It didn't seem that they did. And then, and obviously, the ref's not gone to check it on the monitor or anything like that. The only thing I can think is maybe Michael Oliver was maybe a bit more decisive with the yellow card, so they didn't feel the need to check it. But yeah, it's a hard one to get your head around. I don't see a massive difference between them, really.
Yeah, I think with some of these VAR decisions with the red cards and, the Nketiah one, the one last night, when they're slowed down so much, it obviously makes them look worse than what they are. I think if, VAR wasn't in play, you wouldn't even look twice, at that instance, and you'd just get on with the game. So, and again, it's really interesting. The referees are told to go to the screen. They did with the Arsenal incident, but they didn't with our incident. So I think that's where just fans in general are getting a bit frustrated. It's just the inconsistency. But maybe it did go our way last night with VAR and possibly with the Peters incident against Sheffield United. But we'll definitely take it. And the last thing we needed was James Tarkowski getting sent off. God knows who would have gone centre half then. So to summarise the two results, hard-working performance against Sheffield United, draw a fair result, but really fantastic battling performance yesterday to get the win. Nick Pope, absolutely superb between the sticks. And, it's another 3 points down in London. Okay, so moving ahead to Saturday's game and to the rest of the season. 4 games left. We're in 9th position. Before tonight's fixtures. I know Tottenham are currently playing as we speak. Robbie, can we get into Europe again?
Obviously, I think if you look at our fixtures, obviously we'll ignore the Liverpool game, but I think we have every right to feel a little bit confident. It feels strange to be competing for a European place when we're sandwiched between Spurs and Arsenal. Obviously, like Sheffield United have been in and around it all season, and you expect Wolves to take a spot as well. But I think with our run of form, maybe the fact that there's no fans there maybe takes the pressure off us a little bit. Maybe it makes us play with a bit more freedom. And like I said, we have got favourable fixtures. I think we've got Wolves at home after the Liverpool game, so that's going to be that's a 6 pointer right there. And
yeah,
I think it probably comes down to that one whether we are really capable of finishing the Europa League spot.
How many points do you think we need, Robbie? We know it's going to be tough against Liverpool on Saturday. Do we need to win the games against Wolves, Brighton, and Norwich, or do you think we can afford to drop some more points other than the Liverpool game?
I think the Wolves one will be a must-win. Obviously, we don't know the situation with Norwich. Norwich will probably relegate by that point anyway. Brighton are arguably safe now, so they don't really have much to play for. So I think we're already capable of winning those 3 games. I think if we win those 3 games, then we've probably definitely got a spot. But it'll be disappointing to maybe beat Wolves, and if we fail to maybe beat Norwich away, it'll probably be really disappointing.
Yeah, like we said, I think City find out the result of their appeal, so who knows whether 8th is going to be enough. And if we do come 7th, that could mean we go straight into the group stage. I know there's a lot of talk, especially from the media, Tom, about if Burnley get into Europe, how will it affect the Premier League season? For me, though, it's a no-brainer. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to Turkey or to Athens, and I know you did. So, you definitely want Burnley to get another crack in Europe, don't you, Tom?
Yeah, at the end of the day, like if you're a football fan, I know there's a lot of our fans saying, "Oh, but last time we had a bad season in the Prem." At the end of the day, trips like that, things like that, are what you watch it for. It's cup finals, it's the trips, the away trips abroad, stuff like that. It doesn't come around very often, and for a club like Burnley, every time you make it, it might be the last chance you get. I certainly felt like that when we got there last time. I thought, I don't know if we'll ever get another chance, and that's why I beg pardon still to be able to get out there. So yeah, to be able to do it again would be fantastic. And me personally, I'm not really bothered if it has an impact on our Premier League season. I'd much rather have a run in Europe and finish 15th than not be in Europe and finish 10th. And for me, that's what football's all about. That's what the point of watching football. So, yeah, I'd absolutely love us to do it again. I think it's going to be tough. I think basically we're in a bit of a mini league now with Arsenal, Sheffield United and Tottenham, and we're going to have to finish above 2 of them in order to qualify. That's going to be a big ask, especially with Liverpool being the next game. The Arsenal and Sheffield United have got a chance to put a bit of distance between them and us. But if we keep playing like we've been playing and we keep grinding out results like we have been doing, then we've got every chance. And yeah, it will be absolutely fantastic if we could do it.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, Tom. You might as well finish 15th, and have a decent, or hopefully have a good run in Europe. If you've got nothing to strive for and to aim to get into Europe and finish as high as you can, almost what's the point in keeping playing? My big gripe when we got in Europe was the club was in the healthiest position it ever was for decades, and we never invested in the transfer market. So hopefully this season, even if we don't get into Europe, it looks like we are going to get a top half finish. Hopefully, and we keep saying it, the board will back Dyche in the transfer window. This comes on to the next topic, and I know it's been talked a lot about. I still think we should talk about it. Come to you, Robbie. Dyche has sounded a little bit more positive in the media, would you say?
Yeah, I talked briefly about it when we started, just before we started recording. But obviously, a lot of it is based around the whole contract situation with Jeff Hendrick, and obviously that was still pretty fresh when we played Man City and Watford. So obviously he was still having a bit of a gripe. But obviously, I think since the performances which we've put in, I think it's obviously made the situation a lot easier. Obviously, the dust has settled as well, and maybe there has been more positive conversations between the board and Dyche anyway, which obviously we don't know about. So hopefully, and maybe this whole situation with I don't know if you've seen it, Ben Mee and his obviously his wife or his partner give birth prematurely. Obviously that might have something in terms of Dyche not having a gripe in the media because there's bigger things to worry about. So maybe he's just, but like I say, maybe just have more positive conversations between him and the board. Maybe there's a bit more clarity of what's going on, because it might have just been a miscommunication thing. We don't really know. But I'm sure more and more will come out towards the end of the season, and we'll have a bit more clarity on what's actually happening.
Yeah, I'll stick with you, Robbie. Does it worry you that I know he does keep his cards tight to his chest, and sometimes he almost talks in riddles, but does it worry you that he's not actually willing to confirm that he's definitely going to, be Burnley manager at the start of next season? Or do you think he has to say that in case something does happen and then he leaves and he's made to look like the villain?
I'm not sure. I think obviously from our point of view, it would be nice, because there's been so much talk about Dyche leaving. It would have been nice if he just come out and just went and just said, "Look, my long-term future is with Burnley." Obviously, like people are saying, has he taken Burnley as far as he can? But I think this season has proved that we can keep pushing on. We've seen with Sheffield United, and they've been in and around the top 4 and stuff like that. So there's no reason why we can't think that Sean Dyche can take us to even another level. We don't know. Obviously, if he gets given the funds and he might get back properly, he might be able to bring in a winger who he wants, might be able to bring in another striker who he wants, and that might just help us to go to the next level.
Yeah, fully agree with that. We do need, definitely a few players in the summer. But the dust does seem to have settled. There's not as much in the media, so we all hope, don't we, that Dyche stays on and continues his journey with the club. Tom, I'll come to you, and this maybe comes back to maybe the board have got a point about Dyche spending money. When you look at the Ben Gibson situation, in the light of Ben Mee looking like he's going to be out for the rest of the season, the question was posed to Dyche: is Gibson going to come back to play any part in the season? He basically said definitely not, and he's going this summer. And there's been a lot of difference in opinion on social media on the situation with Ben Gibson. So I'd just like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, according to Karen Carney, he's out on loan in Middlesbrough, isn't he? So maybe we can't record.
Yeah, no, well, that was dreadful. The commentary last night, weren't it? Oh my God. was like the West Ham TV
It was
commentary.
poor, wasn't it? Getting basic stuff like that was no excuse for that, is there? With regards to Gibson, I think it seems pretty obvious he's burnt his bridges now. It shows you. I mean, we spoke about Kev Long and Eric Peters. They're happy to bide the time. Come in and play when they can. People like Tarkovsky when we signed him, he wasn't in the team for 18 months hardly. And look at him now. He's got England caps and he's worth probably 30-40 million pound. Gibson, obviously, for whatever reason, hasn't had that patience. I don't know if he was promised maybe more of a chance in the first team. Obviously, at the time we signed him, it looked like might not be signing a new contract. He's been unfortunate in that Ben Mee and Tarkovsky are so consistent. They very rarely get injured. They very rarely get suspended. But he'd have the chance now. If he'd have stayed, if he'd have kept his toys in the Prem at least for the rest of the season, that he'd be playing in the Premier League now. He'd be playing it as part of a successful team that's knocking on European football. And perhaps even if at the end of the season it was still said to him, Ben Mee's going to be he's the captain. He's going to be in the team next season. If you want to play first team football, you're going to have to move elsewhere. He could have moved on better terms. He could have moved with some football, and having played, a few games in the last couple of years, he'd have the pick of a better move and we might get a bit more money back for him. But as it is, the way he's acted, is anyone else in the Prem going to touch him? If you look at his record, he's played, one Premier League game in the last 2 years. He's throwing his toys out the pram.
And we conceded 5.
Yeah, there you go. He got took off at half time. I mean, in that game, he looked like he'd won a competition to play in the Prem. He was awful. Obviously, what he's got on his CV in the last 6 months, football wise, is that Middlesbrough season ticket holder basically. So I can't see any other Premier League teams wanting to take a punt on him for the money that would be asking for. Hopefully we'll be looking at recouping at least £5 million for him. So he's probably looking at maybe paying up the rest of his contract and becoming a free agent and going back to play for Uncle Steve again at Middlesbrough. And it's a shame, but obviously the mentality isn't quite right compared to what it is with some of our other players. And as you've seen, in the last few weeks, the mentality is what's getting us through. So if he's not prepared to buy into that, it's probably for the best that he's not there now, and it's probably for the best that we do part ways.
Yeah, it's just such a strange situation. We spent a lot of money on him. I think everybody was quite excited at the time. And even when he did play, he didn't look particularly good. And obviously, he's just spat his dummy out and he's drove up the motorway and gone back to Middlesbrough, watching all the games in his Middlesbrough pyjamas up there. So, we could have argued, we could have got rid of him in January. Maybe the best deal didn't come in for us. And, I don't think we'll see him near Turf Moor very soon. And for a number of different reasons, Middlesbrough struggling down in the Championship, which is always quite nice to see. Moving on from Ben Gibson, looking ahead to the Liverpool game at Anfield, it'll be quite nice to have a Saturday 3:00 kickoff, which will be the first one in a while because we've had some funky fixtures recently. Robbie, have we got any chance at Anfield of picking anything up?
To be fair, I'm the one writing. I've written it off already. I think we can maybe take a little bit of confidence. Like they got battered against Man City. The mentality probably wasn't right after winning the title. Aston Villa ran them pretty close. They had quite a lot to play for. And then I didn't watch them against Brighton last night, but they didn't absolutely batter Brighton in terms of a scoreline. So maybe we can catch them on a bad day. Who knows? Obviously, they've done what they needed to do. Hopefully, they're still drinking a bit of prosecco and stuff right now.
Yeah.
So hopefully, we can take advantage. But to be fair, I'm not really expecting anything. I'm more solely focused on Wolves.
If that's the case, if you're solely focused on Wolves, I know we've not got that many players to rest. Would you maybe think of giving a couple of the younger players a few more minutes, or would you just be happy just to stick the same team out there?
No, I'd definitely stick the same team out there because I think it'd be a case of trying to keep the scoreline down because obviously goal difference might come into it on the final day or anything like that. So we have to think about that.
Yeah.
I just think it's going to be a case of trying to make sure we are. To be fair, we are probably going to get beat, but let's just try and make sure we only get beat by 1 or 2.
Yeah, like I said, I was just looking. 46 league matches they've gone unbeaten at Anfield. Last season we went 1-0 up from that Westwood corner, and then kind of I think Eaton made a really bad mistake, and we give it a bit of a go, but ultimately, we lost the game. Really going to be tough. We're seeing how much we struggled away at City. Like Robbie said, it might be a case of damage limitation. Tom, obviously, Wood came on yesterday for the last half an hour. He came on at a time where he was really under pressure, and I thought he did very well last night. He caused the defenders real problems, particularly the two centre halves, stretched them, held the ball up well. It looked like he was, back to match fit after he struggled against Sheffield United. Would you bring him in for Vidra, or are you still happy for Vidra to play because he's been doing well for the team?
Yeah, I think Vidra's he's played well as a that's kind of front man where we haven't got a lot of the ball. We're just going to have to be working, chasing the defenders, putting the pressure on. I think because he's a bit niftier and he gets about the pitch a bit easier than Wood, I think he might be a better choice for this game. Wood did look a lot fitter last night than he did against Sheffield United. He looked well off the pace against Sheffield United, and that makes me think that perhaps another game coming so soon, he'd struggle to start it. I could see him getting another half an hour off the bench, but yeah, for me, I think I'd be sticking with Vidra to start for now.
Yeah, stick with you, Tom. Any chance of maybe seeing Goodmanson or Brady at the weekend too?
You've got no need to. I don't think we've been talking about how well Peters has been playing. You probably need someone who's a bit more defensively minded against Liverpool as well, especially with the way their fullbacks bomb on. So you probably want to have Peters on Robertson or Alexander Arnold, assuming them two play. So yeah, I can't see Goodmanson or Brady starting. You might think that the one thing I did think is in this game, if we're out of it with half an hour to go, if it's 3 or 4 down by that time, then you might start thinking about making a few more subs, just getting some minutes into some legs, letting some of the young lads have a run out. So potentially, if we are 2 or 3 down on the hour mark, then yeah, perhaps get Brady or Goodmanson on, give them half an hour, just put a bit of a bit of game time into their legs for the last bit of the season. But other than that, if it's a tight game, if it's 1-0 either way or something like that, then I think we'll see what we've seen in the last few games, and it's to keep the 11 on the pitch that's doing well and try and get the result over the line.
Yeah, I fully agree with that regards to Goodmanson and Brady. Obviously, they need more minutes in the legs, and they're only going to come in for Peters, who has been, nothing short of brilliant since he's come into the side. So more than happy for Peters to keep his place. Personally, after Wood's performance last night, I would start him against Liverpool. I think we're not going to have a lot. Well, we're hardly going to have any of the ball. We're going to need more of an out ball up front. It's going to be difficult. We all know how good Van Dijk is, but I think I'd go with Wood and Rodriguez on Saturday to maybe hold the ball up a little bit more. But if Vidra does start, then you can't complain because I think he's done very well since the restart and before that. So yeah, I think to kind of summarise, really looking forward to Saturday's game. It's nice to be going to Anfield with a little bit of confidence. I always try and keep positive. We've got a slight chance of getting something there. Maybe they won't be at the same intensity. Hopefully, you never know. A couple of the players might be rested. They've rested Firmino and Mane, so maybe it's Salah's turn to have a little bit of a rest. But we know it's going to be difficult. So hopefully the lads will go there, full of heart, full of spirit, like they've done the last few games, and continue that march on to Europe. So now joining us, we've got Ben Foster, Wigan Athletic season ticket holder and also coach with Wigan Athletic Ladies. With what's going on with the current situation at the moment, we feel it's really important to address it. Before Wigan, Bolton, obviously Bury's gone out of existence. Macclesfield are in financial situation. So, particularly in the EFL, there's real problems at the moment with the financial side of it. So Ben, just the first question is, it just completely came out of the blue. You beat Stoke on last Tuesday, and then Wednesday morning you're in administration. So I know it's really hard, but can you just sum up how the different emotions were going from that high of winning to the lower of administration?
I mean, first of all, thanks for having us on. It really is a situation that we need to try and get as many people talking about, because it is so baffling. Like you say, Tuesday night beat Stoke 3-0. It was probably our best performance one of the best performance of the long unbeaten run that we've been on. I was in the garden on Wednesday morning painting a shed. My dad came up and said, "You'll never guess what, Latics are in administration." And the feeling that you get when you hear that, and obviously, as you say, Bolton and Bury just down the road have been in similar situations. You always think, "Oh, it's never going to happen to my club," and that just sinking feeling you get, and the thought that you might not have a football club to go back to in next season. It's really awful, because I'm sure, as you know, it's more than just a football club. It's more than just going to the games. We always say that it's 90 minutes of inconvenience on a Saturday,
Yeah.
because it really is more than a football club.
Yeah, I just want to echo those thoughts for our listeners on the No Nay Never podcast. I live in Wigan now. I'm born and bred in Wigan. It's an amazing town with amazing people, and we've got a proud sporting heritage in this town with the football club and with the rugby league club too, Wigan Warriors. So it's a massive part of people's lives, as you were saying, Ben. It's more than 90 minutes. I was speaking to my best friends who are all season ticket holders at Wigan. And they're just worried about not having that game on a Saturday, not going to the football, with their mates, with their family, and then the future generations of Wigan fans being able to go to the games. It truly is shocking, and we just really hope that a buyer can come in as soon as possible. I heard today that there's a possibility of Ian Lenigan, the chairman of Wigan Warriors, coming in, possibly with other interesting parties and having joint ownership of Wigan Athletic and Wigan Warriors. I know there is a little bit of friction between the two clubs, but overall on Twitter, what I've seen, that's been more well received than not. So what's your thoughts on that?
I think there's going to be a lot of people deleting tweets if that does happen. It's like you say, that there's been a lot of friction between the football and the rugby supporters for various different reasons over the years. Back in the day, it was said that it was like a plucky little Wigan playing non-league football in the back garden of this giant rugby club, and there's been a lot over the years. But it seems to me that the majority of issues that have been in the past, and the people that have caused the issues aren't around at either club anymore. So it really does seem that it could be a good move going forwards. A united sporting front in Wigan would be, in my opinion, fantastic for the whole community and for the whole town. So as much as I will have to kind of swallow my pride being a Latics fan, and potentially the owners of the rugby owning the football club, not Wigan Warriors owning the football club, it'll be their owners owning us, just to make sure that the Warriors fans don't start pulling that one over on us. But no, if it saves the club, and if it does unite the town, I think it can only be a good thing.
Yeah, I fully agree with everything you've said there, Ben. I think it's a good thing, and I think what you want after the current ownership, or the previous ownership, whichever way you look at it, is somebody coming in who you can trust and who's local, who will have the club and the town, with the best interests. So that brings me on to the current ownership. Again, we were saying it really come out of the blue. So can you tell me a little bit who the owners were? And then why they put you into administration, or why you feel they have put you into administration, because there's a lot of rumours flying about.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you'll have to bear with me. There are a lot of dates, a lot of figures, but I will try and keep it as simple as possible. So, as you say, this kind of came out the blue last Wednesday, but it is something that has been going on for a while. So I've got a little timeline. So essentially, a company called IEC, International Entertainment Corporation, who are a business that are owned by a bloke called Stanley Choi, professional poker player over in Hong Kong. They bought Wigan Athletic for around £16 million, although that figure is debated, in November 2018. They spent over a year negotiating a deal. So you would think that they were serious investors. They buy the club, they say, because they're diversifying their income streams, which doesn't really make much sense, considering that Wigan Athletic have always been a loss-making business and have been for years. Regardless, they decide to pump £1 million into the club each month to cover the running costs, which racks up a debt of about 25 million to IEC by May of this year. In 2019, IEC signified that they want to sell the club. They cite failure to get into the Prem, failure of success on and off the field, and for some reason they cite Brexit, which doesn't really make any sense considering they bought the club after the referendum. In fact, 2 years after the referendum. So I personally don't buy that one. Regardless, IEC sell to a company called Next Leader Fund in June 2020. Now, Next Leader Fund didn't exist in January 2020, but it is owned by Stanley Choi, who is the majority shareholder of IEC. So Stanley Choi sets up Next Leader Fund with a bloke called YK O Young, and on the 29th of May, they buy Wigan Athletic. Now, in order to buy Wigan Athletic, Next Leader Fund takes out a loan of £28 million with extortionate interest rates on this loan from IEC. So it's a situation where you've got Stanley Choi buying Wigan Athletic again from himself with money he's loaned to himself from himself. And 4 weeks later, we're in administration. Now, before we went into administration, on the 24th of June, there was a big reshuffle in the Next Leader Fund board. Essentially, Stanley Choi washes his hands of it, and Mr. Young becomes the majority owner. A guy called Man Chung Shetso, who's a former Hong Kong footballer, no executive experience as far as I can see. He used to run an amateur football team. Man Chung, they're brought in order to vote for administration. Now, a guy called Thomas Chan intended to vote against administration, but was moved on before the vote. Now, you can make your own opinions on why that might have been. So, on the morning of last Wednesday, the directors over here, Darren Royal, Joe Royal, and Jonathan Jackson. Jonathan Jackson's been at the club for a long, long time, and I believe he's no longer at the club as of last weekend, which is very sad. But anyway, on that Wednesday morning, the vote was sprung with them by email, and unfortunately we lost and we're in administration. It's it's bizarre.
Can I just say, Ben, I think the way you've summarised it there has been excellent. You've clearly done a lot of research on it to understand what's gone on and then to simplify it really well. I think obviously the key one is that I've tried to keep up is the IEC sold it to the NLF. Can you remind me what that was again? The NLF, the new.
It's a Next Leader Fund which was created in January 2020 in the Cayman Islands, which is owned by the same guy, or was owned, I should say.
Yeah, and then I seen that the bills were paid when that was took over at the start of June, and then like you said, last Wednesday in July, the money wasn't being funded, and you went into administration. That's correct, isn't it? From what I've seen and what you've said.
It's essentially the guy sold it to himself. There's been a big reshuffle, and the money that was promised from these quote-unquote new owners, even though you could argue it was the same owners, they just decided to take the money away, so it's not with the club anymore.
And the most mental rumour that I've heard, and somebody was caught filming Rick Parry saying it, and the EFL have come out saying that was Rick Parry, is that this company has had a bet with a betting company in the Philippines. We don't know what that bet is, but the bet is for Wigan to get relegated. And there seems that because Wigan started winning again, to put them in administration and to have that 12-point deduction is the only way it seems now that Wigan will get relegated. If that's true, which there seems to be some traction to it, then that could be one of the biggest ever scandals in English and world football. Can you elaborate on a bit more of that, Ben, please?
I can. I mean, personally, although it does make a bit of sense in terms of the timeline with just the timing of administration, I personally, I'm not convinced because I've not seen any evidence on it. The biggest thing for me is that the chairman of the Football League, Rick Parry, was filmed saying that. So that's not come from a random bloke on Twitter. That's come from the head of the EFL. But the more baffling thing for me is that Rick Parry knew about this. But the first the administrators of Wigan Athletic heard about it was when a fan shared the video. So if the EFL have had this knowledge of a potential bet, being the reason behind administration, why not inform the administrators of Wigan Athletics? Surely that's a duty as a governing body that you need to help the football club in any way you can, regardless if it's true or if it's not. And there will be more questions asked of the EFL going forwards.
I think the reason that this bet rumour has maybe got more traction too is that nobody else, there seems no other real logical reason that the owners have just all of a sudden put you into administration when you've started to climb the league. You've got some really good young players at the club. Anthony Robinson, who was going to go to AC Milan, Joe Geldart, Jensen Weir, some youth team players. So this is what's so confusing. There seems no logical reason for them to all of a sudden, out of the blue, put you into this administration.
No, I agree. I mean, obviously, I can't say what the motives are because I unfortunately was not part of it. But for me, it seems a case of I'd like to believe that the intentions of buying the club way back in 2018 were genuine. I think that perhaps it could have been a situation where they underestimated how hard it was to run a football club in England.
Yeah.
So for me, it seems like they've created this new company.
Yeah.
They've moved the club into this company to not affect the share price of IEC, which is the main company. Because the share price, not the price, sorry, but the shares usually trade about 50 to 100,000 a day with IEC. That went to 35 million on the day that Latics was sold over. So a lot of money was made there. So that's a potential motive. But it just seems to me that they've moved it into a separate holding account to cut the losses and sell the assets and try and recoup some money or make a little bit of profit.
Yeah, that definitely, obviously it's completely wrong, but it does seem more of a sensible and a reputable reason rather than the elaborate scheme of that multi-million-pound bet in the Philippines. So this comes on, this comes on to what I'm going to say next. So there's been a lot of protests. Well, not a lot. I would say fair protests from Wigan fans to the EFL. I've seen Lisa Nandy, who's the MP for Wigan, has wrote a real powerful but strong message to the to the EFL and to the government to really review and look into the case. So, and obviously the EFL have come under a lot of criticism recently. As we mentioned before, to do with situations with Bolton, Bury, Macclesfield. So, what's your view on the EFL and their dealings with it?
I mean, before we go on to the EFL, I just want to say that the difference between what the EFL have done and what the fans have done has been staggering. The fans have been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And I must say, not just Wigan Athletic fans. We've had fans of other clubs jump on and try and champion our cause. And, we've raised over £125,000 in just over 3 days.
Amazing, yeah.
People have been auctioning memorabilia that they've had on the walls for years and donating art and creating things. And you've had one 10-year-old donate his birthday money, 100 quid of it.
Fantastic.
It is. And the players themselves have been fantastic because obviously, I mean, we lost to Brentford at the weekend, but personally, I think we would have lost regardless of this. But the fight they've shown and just the attitude towards the club, it does show that they really care. As you say, we've had open letters by people like Jay Whittle. It's been, the fans have turned into detectives overnight. People like Harry Robinson, the Progress with Unity podcast. It's honestly, it's fantastic.
I know, I've seen that,
The amount of work that has gone into this, and it's not just accusations, and it's not just like you sometimes see when clubs go in this position where people point the finger and say they must be dodgy. It's genuine, in-depth research into previous accusations of. I'll not go too much into them because I don't want to get anybody in trouble or accuse anybody of anything they've not done. But the sheer amount of work that has been put in by the fans to save this club, to save their club, has been fantastic. And as you say, Lisa Nandy and Andy Burnham, and even Keir Starmer's now jumping on with this. And honestly, it's really nice that this is starting to get some traction and some momentum because honestly, we need all the help we can get.
Yeah, certainly. I think, again, really, really well summarised there, Ben. I think as clubs, especially Northwest clubs, town clubs, the football clubs or the sports clubs are the heartbeat of the town. It gives people something to look forward to at the weekend when they've been working hard all week. At the moment, Burnley's doing well, but it wasn't so long ago, just over 10 years ago, when we were facing administration problems, and then going back further than that, when ITV Digital went bust, Burnley was in real difficulty. And, don't get me wrong, there's no one more than me who has a friendly rivalry with Wigan Athletic. I grew up in high school when Burnley was struggling and Wigan was winning. And I remember going to the Soccer Dome, if there's any Wigan fans watching this, wearing my Burnley top. And I got endless stick. And I still do now, being from Wigan, being a Burnley fan. But, we all have that rivalry, but nobody wants to see football clubs going out of existence. Bolton, Bury, it's an absolute tragedy that these owners are being allowed to come in to run these clubs. For me, the issue I have with the EFL is, they're going on about these fit and proper tests, but it's happening time and time again, and the EFL don't seem to be improving it at all. Again, is it the EFL's fault, this? I'm not sure, but then to suddenly just deduct Wigan 12 points when this come out of the blue seems really unfair to me. I think that hopefully is something that gets evaluated and changed. Well, that comes on to that point. We've obviously covered the EFL. We've covered who the current owners now. So, as I mentioned before, there was a link with Wigan Warriors possibly coming together to help the club. I heard a rumour as well with Marwan Kukash. For those who don't know, was the former Salford Red Devils chairman, who also lives in the Wigan area. So what's the future, do you think, for Wigan Athletic, and can Wigan fans have a well-established football club to keep supporting in for the rest of this season and into next season?
I'd like to hope so. I think today, it's, if you're a Wigan Athletic fan, you're a lot happier than you were yesterday. Yesterday it looked very, very bleak. We've had a lot of redundancies seemingly overnight, and today. And that has been heartbreaking, because I know a lot of good people at that football club that do a lot for the community. I mean, like you say, with these, it was 12 potential new owners, then it became 30, and now apparently it's up to as high as 50 with a lot of NDAs that have gone out, so that a lot of proof of funds. And obviously today with the Warriors, it can only be seen as a good thing to try and save the club. But for me, this goes beyond Wigan Athletic. Whatever happens to us, in my opinion, it's bigger than us now, because this isn't just an isolated incident, as you say. We've had Bolton, we've had Bury, we've had Charlton, Macclesfield.
Yeah, Charlton.
Countless others. And for me, a lot of the blame lies... Yeah, Charlton as well. A lot of the blame lies with the EFL. I mean, I've got some quotes from the administrators here who said the club have been well run from a day-to-day basis. The directors know what they're doing, they're experienced. It's just the money that was promised didn't arrive, and that's not their fault. It's a very well-run football club with money in the bank, and they say it's the oddest situation they've ever been in. Now, as a governing body, as the EFL, their current proof of funds model is that you have to prove that you've got enough funds to sustain the club for the current season and the season after. However, you don't have to prove a commitment to spend that on the club. You don't have to put it into bonds, you don't have to put it into an escrow account or anything. You just have to say, here's the money, I've got the money, and you're well within your right to just withdraw that the day after, which is essentially what's happened to us. For me, this situation, as baffling as it is, it really needs some sort of high-level EFL reform so that they actually protect football clubs from a situation like this and a situation like Bolton and Bury. And as you say, with the 12-point deduction, how can you look at a situation like this and blame the football club and blame the fans? If you've got the administrators saying, this is a well-run football club, it's just the money was pulled from under the carpet was pulled from under them, how could a 12-point deduction possibly help in that situation? And I get it's a deterrent to stop clubs going into administration and rewriting all the debts off, but surely you've got to be taking it by a club-by-club basis.
Again, there seems no common sense to what they're doing. As you were saying, it's not been taken on.
That's an understatement.
Well, yeah, but there is no common sense to this at all. But take it on a club by club basis. Wigan's completely different to Bolton, to Charlton. And like I said, this administration is one that shocked everybody within football. and the EFL's got to be really careful. We've got to future-proof our game. My point that I always make. I'm a Burnley fan, you're a Wigan fan. This wouldn't be allowed to happen to one of the major clubs. So why, when it happens to a small club like Bury or Macclesfield, it's just washed under the carpet? How can Bury be a football club that's over 100 years old, and then all of a sudden they're not even there anymore? It's just completely wrong. The EFL really need to look at themselves and protect football in this country. Because we're in the Premier League at the moment and it's great, we enjoy it, but if we need football league in this country. It's really worrying for me because Wigan could be, and who is it next? Who's the next club that this is going to happen to? Because as you said, it's not an isolated incident.
It's like you say, the governing bodies need to protect football in this country, and at present, football is not sustainable in this country. How can you have a business? Not even just a business, a whole group of businesses in the league structure operating at losses of, for our example, we usually operate at a loss of between 5 and 10 million a season. How is that sustainable?
And the
model has to change, regardless of what has happened to us with the owners.
Yeah, and that's nothing compared to modern football. That's a drop in the hat, 5 to 10 million. If you look at I know I don't want to go off topic too much, but Aston Villa got promoted this season. They've gone and spent 120 million, and out of them players, who's actually any good that they've signed? So the money that's being, but the money that's being spent is just ridiculous, and it does feel that it's coming to a head at the moment, and with what's happening with COVID, Wigan aren't going to be the first team, especially if fans aren't allowed in the ground. For a number of months, that's going to impact teams massively. So yeah, my main thought on this is it's very sad for my hometown, for my close friends, and some of my family who support Wigan. I really, really hope that for next season the club's got a football club, people's got a football club to support, and then young people then in grassroots sport in this town are still continuing to play football, and there is a challenge in Wigan that. People do go and support Man United and Liverpool, as you know, Ben. But hopefully, more young people in the town need a football club to go and support, Wigan for the next 25, 30, 50 years.
No, as you say, it is a problem with us being in such a saturated area in terms of just the sheer number of football clubs and the sheer number of massive football clubs in the Northwest. But with the current model of league football, it's got to be sustainable for everybody.
Yeah.
You've got clubs like Derby and I think Chef Wednesday selling stadiums to themselves to inflate the numbers so they can spend more money to get to the Premier League. And I do think it is a fall down effect from the Premier League. If you've got TV deals worth tens of billions of pounds, and that's not getting allocated to the Football League, it's a model that's unsustainable. And if we do want, as you say, people to be supporting clubs for the next 30, 50 years, you've got to have football clubs there. If they go under, the football culture in this country will dramatically change. And a lot of clubs, especially as you say with COVID, it does seem to be heading that way.
Yeah. All right, Ben. I'd love to wrap this up soon, but is there anything that any final points that you would like to add, just about anything to do with this situation?
I'd just like to say thank you for talking about it, because, as you say, it is. I think it has been a little disingenuous in the media where people have just kind of said, "Oh, it's a coronavirus thing. It's the first club to fall to coronavirus." When, in all honesty, it's got, in my opinion, nothing to do with coronavirus, or very, very little in any case. But I would say, obviously, I know we've got a bit of a banterous rivalry at times with Burnley and Blackburn and Bolton, but there's a crowdfunding page run by Wigan Athletic Supporters Club, and obviously we'd really appreciate if people could donate, even if it's just a case of sharing things on Twitter, just trying to get the word out. Anything on hashtag WAFC, all the detailed research that people have been doing, we'd really appreciate it. And obviously, thank you for having me on to talk about it.
Thanks, Ben. Like I said, really appreciate your time. You talked very eloquently, very sensibly, and made the current difficult situation into a way that people can easily follow. So thanks for your time, and from everybody here at the No Nay Never podcast, we really hope Wigan get out of this situation soon and have a football club to follow next season.
No, thank you very much. All the best for the rest of the season.
Cheers, Ben. Thank you. Bye-bye. So that's all we've got time for on this week's show. My thanks to Tom and Robbie for joining me to analyse the matches. Thanks again to Ben for talking us through the crisis at Wigan. Really difficult times down at the DW Stadium. Thanks to producer Matt for editing and publishing this episode. But our final thanks, as ever, goes to you, the listener, for downloading and listening to the podcast. Thank you very much, and good night.